Welcome to Round Glass. I'm Nithya Shanti. I'm really happy to welcome you for this session on The Obstacle is the Way. This is actually a bit of a preview of a course that we're launching, an 8-part course that you're going to get access to. And I'm going to give you a taste of this today. It's an experiential session, and as you'll discover, it's pretty free flowing, and it's an opportunity for you to take a little moment of pause in your day, really connect with yourself. And here's a contra wisdom to begin with. Contra wisdom is the opposite of what you expect can also be true. That I don't want to change you. I don't want you to be different. And here's the fascinating thing I found, that when I don't try to change people, don't try to fix people, don't try to improve people, don't assume they should be different from who they are, I find that's when sometimes there's maximum change, maximum transformation, if it's meant to be. And so we're going to be exploring themes like this in today's session. Let's start with a bit of a question. Is there anything that you want to overcome in your life? And if so, please type it out in the chat. Something that you'd like to overcome in your life. So take a minute to think about that and type it out. I can give an example from my life. I judged myself for a long time for being very eclectic. You've heard this phrase, jack of all, master of none. So I felt that my biggest problem is that I can't stick with things. I'll start something and I'll drop it. I'll start something and I'll drop it. So I began learning painting and I went a certain way and I dropped it. I began learning music. I was playing tabla and a few other musical instruments and I dropped it after a while. And so I tried many, many, many things and never really stuck with them for too long. And I think I'm not the only one. Many people have this kind of predicament. And it's years later when I realized that it's not necessarily a bad thing to be a generalist. Not all of us are meant to be specialists. Some of us are meant to be generalists. And there's actually a word for it, multi-potentialite. And there are books on it like Refuse to Choose. And the idea that there are the different kind of strengths in being good at many, many, many things. So in a way, I used to judge myself, I'm a jack of all, master of none. Then I realized I'm a master at being a jack of all. So I made peace with my eclectic approach, and I'm unabashedly eclectic. And I've taken from many sources, ancient and modern, not just one tradition, from many different traditions. And while it may appear, I'm just picking and choosing, within myself, I feel a lot of coherence. I feel inwardly consistent with what I'm doing. So that's an example from my side. Let's see if any of you have anything in the chat that you've come up with, some examples of something that you've been struggling with. Right, so laziness, procrastination holds you back. Yeah, that's right. More than one person has said that. Fear of being wrong. Yeah, fear of being wrong. Fear of failing. Jack of trades, master of none. Yeah, that's jack of all, master of none. You're right. Yeah, so these are the kind of obstacles that some of you are going through. And the funny thing is, the more strongly we create an identity around that, there's a little example which I find quite powerful of this king who wanted a new palace built. And so he found there was a piece of land near a village. And he's the king, right? So he orders the villagers, okay, I'm going to have a palace built here. So prepare the ground to have the palace built. Now there happens to be a well, a very old well on this piece of land. And the villagers have been instructed, you fill up this well because now the king is going to come and they're going to be building a palace here. So, all right. So they're filling up the well with sand. And there's a donkey who's helping out. The donkey brings all the sand and they put the sand into the well. Now in the process, and they're in a bit of a hurry because the king shouldn't be displeased, the donkey slips and falls into the well. He's a big donkey and he's fallen into the well. It's a reasonably deep well. How do you get the donkey out? And the donkey, of course, is very upset and he's crying and he's upset. And they try in the beginning, let's help this donkey out. But they realize it's just too difficult. It's too complex. So they make the horrific decision that the only way out is to bury the donkey alive. They don't have time for this. If they delay any further, they're going to be in trouble with the king. So they start pouring sand into the well. And the donkey, of course, is super upset and he's braying very loudly. And what's going on? He realizes they're trying to bury him alive. And after a while, the braying stops. And the people assume that that's it. Donkey's finished. They look down and they find this donkey is really smart. He's figured out what's going on. So instead of crying, now when they pour sand in, he just shakes his back and he stomps on whatever sand has fallen. In other words, with every time they pour the sand in, he comes up a few inches, comes up a few inches. And over the next few hours, it comes high enough that he can jump out and he runs away. And this is a great example, to my mind, of what you imagine to be the problem to make that itself into the solution. They're burying him alive, and he uses that. He transforms that very thing into an opportunity. Now, this requires a whole different way of thinking. And in my life, perhaps what's been the biggest learning is to learn to begin to think like this, to see obstacles not as the problem, but as a stepping stone. In the earlier days, nowadays, of course, we have digital cameras. In the earlier days, we had these, the film roll, the cameras. And so I remember in school, I was part of the photography club. And so we would take these film rolls into a dark room. The only light that was allowed is red light. That's the only light that doesn't disturb the film roll. And then we would develop the film roll. And so I always found it fascinating that, in a way, life is like photography. You use the negative. The film roll was called the negative. You use the negative to develop. So now that we've heard from some of you, I find it helpful to start by emptying ourselves a little bit. I don't know what your day has been like. Some of you are in India, you've had a long day. Some of you are in the US, and the day is just barely starting. But here's another contra wisdom. Presence implies absence. Presence implies absence. You've got to be somewhat empty on the inside in order to be present with what's happening around you. If you're full on the inside, then there's no space to take anything else in. You might have seen this cartoon which went around quite a bit. It's a man walking his dog, and there's a thought bubble, and the man is thinking of all these different things about his home and emails and projects and work. Thought bubble. And the dog also has a thought bubble. And in the dog's thought bubble, the dog is just seeing what's in front of him, the trees and the path in front of him. So the caption said, mindful or mindful. In the man's case, the mind is full. In the dog's case, it's mindful, present. And I think those of you who've been around animals, this quality of being more present. They tend to be more with their immediate experience than projecting so much into the future. So presence implies absence. Let's actually start with a small practice to be a little bit more present, which means emptying ourselves out a little bit so we can explore this beautiful topic in more depth. So please sit comfortably. If you'd like to close your eyes, you can, or just keep them half closed. And here's another contra wisdom. Instead of trying to control your inner experience, you actually allow your experience. Instead of trying to be mindful, I want you to be kindful. By kindful, I mean meet everything that comes up in your inner experience as a guest. Welcome each guest. So what's going on right now? Are there thoughts? Are there any strong emotions? Is there any tiredness? Or are you quite present? Just notice it. With an attitude of kindfulness, non-judgment. And just like when you enter a new space, you take in the whole space. You want to know, where are you? You're orienting yourself. In this moment, take in your whole inner world. That includes thoughts, emotions, sensations. Whatever's going on, take it in. Inhabit your present experience. Inhabit your body. This might require an adjustment in your breath. Breath reflects mind, mind reflects breath. Also, check that your posture is more comfortable. Release any tension in your shoulders. Sitting in a dignified way. Keeping a gentle smile. And what's it like to welcome your present experience? Instead of trying to fix it, change it, improve it, welcome whatever is happening now. I'm going to give you some contradictory guidelines because we're discussing Contra Wisdom today. So please, whatever happens, do not be aware of your breath. You can think of anything, just don't think of your breath, just don't feel your breath. You're allowed to go to the past, you're allowed to plan for the future. Just don't be aware of your breath. You see what's happening? Keep going. Think of anything but the breath. Whatever you do, don't experience what's happening in the present. You're allowed to go on a flight of fancy. Don't experience the present moment. In other words, don't experience the breath. Don't experience sensations. If possible, don't be peaceful. Don't recognize the underlying peace that's always available. Remain caught up on the surface of your mind. Is there such an underlying peace? We don't even know if it's there. So why bother? Don't be peaceful. Focus on unfinished business. Whatever happens, don't connect with that underlying silence, that underlying peace. Basically, whatever happens, don't meditate. Whatever happens, don't allow any stress to be released, any tiredness to be released, any tightness to be released. Because it is naturally releasing. Just don't let it happen. Remain on your superficial self. Do not connect with your deeper self. Whenever you're ready, you can take a few deep breaths. Second is deeper. And third is extra deep. If you like, you can rub your palms together. Bring them over your eyes. Beautiful. So, did you notice what happened there? Have you ever experienced a meditation where you were given such kind of instructions? I'm curious if you want to put in the comments, what was it like for you? And somebody said a little while back that one of the obstacles that they face is doing things wrong. And notice what happened in what the instructions I gave you. I gave you permission to do it wrong. Go ahead and do it wrong. Go ahead and be distracted. Go ahead and think of the past, think of the future. Don't be in the present. Don't think of the breath. I gave you permission to do it wrong. And in that permission, something happened. So that's a great example of contra wisdom. The opposite of what we expect can be true. Just seeing some of the comments. So Dolly's saying it was difficult. It was surprisingly calm. It was reality. Nice. Yes, you see how fascinating this is. It's like it's to recognize this kind of psychology, it can be life changing actually. Ankita says so much easier to do what you asked us to. What you asked us not to do. So I want to give you some examples from my life of how I found this really, really transformational. Give you two or three examples. So one is when I first began teaching, about 2006 or 7, I began teaching. And I noticed a certain kind of tightness or tension emerging within me. And I got curious, what's this about? What's this tension about? And I realized the thought, I want to be a good teacher. I want to be a good teacher. I want to be a helpful teacher. I don't want to mislead people. I want to make sure I'm giving them correct teachings, not false teachings. So I began to notice this tension inside myself. So then one day I said, okay, let's just figure this out. What's going on here? What's the shadow getting created here? So I said, what am I afraid of? I said, oh, I'm afraid of misleading people. I'm afraid of misguiding people. I'm afraid of teaching the wrong things. I'm afraid of misusing their trust in some way, right? I'm afraid of letting people down. So I said, all right, if that's what I'm afraid of, then let me go ahead and meet that part of me that thinks like that, feels like that. And I actually sat down and I said, what's it like to be the world's worst teacher? What's it like to be the world's worst teacher in every way, right? So I'm deceptive, I'm manipulative, I'm uncaring, I misuse the trust that people put in me. I mean, basically every possible way you can imagine, I am the world's worst teacher. And when I did that, I was expecting to feel horrible. Instead, I was shocked to find I felt a lot of compassion. I said, wow, it takes thousands of such teachers for there to be one genuine teacher, one truly selfless teacher, one truly extraordinary teacher. Because you see, by itself, nothing is extraordinary. It's only in comparison to the ordinary that something is extraordinary. So it came to me that why do I always want to be the shiny one? Why do I always want to be the special one? Why can't I be the ordinary one? A very beautiful shift happened in that moment. I said, all right, so I allow myself to be the world's worst teacher. Let others be the world's best teacher. Let me be the world's worst teacher. Because there have to be many worst teachers in order to be a good teacher. If I'm always trying to be the best teacher, why? Why do I have to be the best all the time? It's okay. Let other people be the best this time. And something in me instantly relaxed. And there was a collapse, a polarity collapse, a polarity of what I want to be and what I'm afraid of not being. And in that moment, as I allowed myself, as I embraced that part of me, that dark part of me, the shadow part of me, that all right, so be it. In that moment, there was a collapse. And I allowed myself to just be the way I am. And to that extent, I allowed others who came to me to also be exactly the way that they are. You see, to the extent I'm okay with in my skin, I can be okay with the way you are. This is one example of Contra Wisdom. The opposite of what you expect is true. In my willingness to embrace my fear and what I was resisting, right there the shift happened. So in fact, one good summary of everything we're learning here is, what would it take to shift from resistance to welcoming? What would it take? That's the essential shift over here. The shift from resisting some aspect of your life, shouldn't be like this, shouldn't be like this, shouldn't be like this. Say, come on. That's what we did in our meditation right now. Right. Instead of resisting, oh, don't be distracted. Come on, don't think of that. Come on, it's all right. Be distracted. Think of that. So we went from resistance to welcoming. Why welcoming? It's there anyway. Because when we meditate, that's our experience. Our mind wanders. It happens anyway. We tend to think of the past and the future. It happens anyway. So it's going to happen anyway. So why not make friends with it? Why be resisting it? How about being friends with what is? How about having that level of trust in life? That's one example from my life. Give me another example. This one's pretty deep, and it really, in a way, it transformed my life actually. Because when I was 16 years old, I went for a meditation course, and I was really struck by such simple teachings, but such practical teachings, and I could really feel a difference coming in my life. So I began attending more of these courses. They were 10-day long, silent meditation retreats. And I began to notice a fear come up in me. Because somewhere in my practice, I got a taste of how fleeting everything is. Breath comes and goes, feelings come and go, thoughts come and go, sensory impressions come and go. Everything's just fleeting, like a river that's flowing. It's just fleeting. And I could almost feel that everything's just dissolving. It's like everything is dissolving. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this life seems like a long life, but actually it's actually a very short life. And I got the sense that there's no guarantee that I'll live that long. I could die the next minute. In fact, I got one of the retreats, I got an unreasonable fear that on my way home, I'm going to have a car accident and die. I just couldn't get that thought out of my head. On the way back home, I'm going to have a terrible car accident. I'm going to die. So a kind of fear of death came into me. And there is the teaching in that tradition that your last moment of consciousness, just before you die, determines the next moment of consciousness in whatever happens next. So I thought about it and I said, well, most of my day, I'm either wanting something, or I'm not wanting something, or I'm lost in my confusion and distractions. It is very rare to have a moment of clarity. It is very, very rare for me to have a moment of open heartedness and love. So the majority of moments are those of craving and resistance or aversion, or just confusion or ignorance. So I am not going to have a very good, and especially like also in pain, when I sit and meditate, my legs would hurt. And then I get even more agitated. Oh, this leg is hurting, when will it stop? So at the moment of death, there might be some physical pain. So likely even more, there'll be that resistance. So a very deep fear came up. The fear of dying unmindfully and the consequences of that. It was years later when I read a book. And in this book, there was a story about a great meditation master who calls all his students and says, my practice has failed. Your practice has failed? What are you talking about? You're a great teacher. So, no, my practice has failed. My whole life, any practice I've done, I've dedicated the merit of that, the potency of that, the spiritual energy of that, with a simple intention, may I be born in hell. May I be born in hell? Why do you want to be born in hell? Who wants to be born in hell? He says, no, all the saints go to heaven. All the teachers go to heaven. All the teachers go to these beautiful places. I want to go to hell. That's what I needed the most. Who needs me in heaven? They already know everything. His students are shocked. Who does that? Who sits and makes intentions like, may I be born in hell? And they're all sitting and weeping over there. They can't believe that teacher has made an intention like this. And the teacher is saying, my death is approaching. I can see I'm going to die in a bit. And all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are inviting me up. I don't want to go up. I want to go down. So please pray to them. Don't take him up. Take him down. And I found that teaching so powerful. It instantly dissolved my resistance. You see, I was resisting something without even realizing it. I was afraid of an unconscious, unmindful passing. And in that moment, something shifted. And I said, all right, I don't know how I'm going to die. I don't know when I'm going to die. I don't know what circumstances of my death will be. But wherever I go, may I be a channel of blessings for someone. Wherever I go, may I be able to support in some way those in need. May I connect with teachers such as this. And may I be of support in some way. Instantly, in that moment, I felt an energetic dissolution, resolution, clarification. A deeply held knot, a deeply held, like you could say, a fear, baggage I was carrying, just dissolved. So these are some examples from my life of shifting from resistance to welcoming. One of the common ones that people have is the sense of, like some of you said, I'm lazy, I procrastinate. In my case, it was I'm inconsistent. I can't stick with things. Then I looked at it more carefully and I said, actually, I'm very consistently inconsistent. I'm consistently inconsistent. But there's certain things I am consistent with. For example, breathing. I'm very consistent with breathing. I'll not stop for more than a minute or two. Right? I'm very consistent with eating. When I'm hungry, I eat. I'm very consistent with that. I'm very consistent with when I'm tired, I take a nap, go to sleep. There are many things I'm also consistent with. So in the same way, when you say you're lazy, you procrastinate, is it really true that in every single department of your life you procrastinate? So look for all the examples. Like for example, when someone rings the doorbell, do you answer it? When you get a notification on your phone, do you look at it? You're not procrastinating there. So there are many examples of how you don't procrastinate. When you go out of the house, you wear your shoes. Right? And you start changing the self-image that you have about yourself. Because actually it's not coming, we imagine it's coming from a trait. It's actually not a trait, it's an identity. When the identity changes, everything changes. So when I identify myself as someone who wants to use my life energy for my own benefit and the benefit of all, something changes. Something fundamental changes. So more important than trying to change your life, you change your identity. You change your way of looking at things. When you change your way of looking at things, everything changes. In India, this is called Yatha Drishti Tatha Shrishti. Change your way of looking at things things you look at change. Right, so let's explore today's topic in more depth. The obstacle is the way. Take a moment of stillness, silence. Eyes can be open or closed. As you hear the statement, the obstacle is the way, see what happens within you. So, one of the principles that can support this thought is no mistakes in the universe. No mistakes in the universe. From my perspective, your perspective, a lot of things seem like mistakes. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. But that's because you're looking at it from our human perspective. If you look at it from the perspective of eternity, is it still a mistake? A lot of the things you and I enjoy. Did you know that most of the inventions that have led to the kind of lifestyle we have today, most of them came between World War I and World War II, because that the wars really pushed people to innovate. A lot of our present comforts come from the innovative minds of that time. The war led to all kinds of inventiveness, all kinds of resourcefulness, using limited resources there to come with all kinds of solutions. Did you know that the US highway system was designed in a way that fighter planes could land on it? Because they knew that if they just depend on their airports, then the enemy will just bomb the airports, it's all over. But no enemy can bomb an entire highway system. So the highway system was designed in such a way that fighter jets could land on it if required. So then you have good highway system based on a war. So no mistakes. What you think was wrong or bad can also lead to some kind of benefit, some kind of advantage. One of the very profound questions to ask yourself, I make people do this in my retreats. I make them sit in a small group and reflect on what they consider to be the lowest point of their life. What you would call the worst thing that ever happened to them in their life. Sometimes it's losing parents, sometimes it's losing a child, sometimes it's losing a job, sometimes it's getting humiliated, whatever it is. What for you is the worst thing that ever happened? Maybe it's a physical illness. And then here's a powerful question only meant for the brave, that in some way, how is this the most powerful blessing you've ever received? Not for the faint-hearted, this kind of question. And when people think about this and they sit and they talk in groups, in what ways has this experience been the most powerful blessing I've ever received? This most painful, this most difficult, this most unfair thing that ever happened. And it completely shifts the way of thinking around it. And people often have tears in their eyes and they recognize that, wow, this has made me who I am. No mistakes. No mistakes. So the idea of no mistakes, every atom in the universe is exactly the place it's meant to be. If it shouldn't have happened, it wouldn't have happened. Your idea that things should happen according to your version of how they should happen, this is our conceit. This is our pride. This is our sense of assuming we know better than life. Right. So one phrase I learned from the shamanic traditions is, whatever happens, they like to say, this is good medicine. This is good medicine. So whatever is happening, pleasant, unpleasant, this is good medicine. By good medicine, we mean this is here to awaken me. This is here to free me. This is here to elevate me in some way. Life is not vindictive. Life is corrective. It's here to lift us up to a higher ground. Every experience. And of course, like I said, yatha drishti tata shrishti. What the thinker thinks, the prover proves. If you don't believe that, that's also true. It's like, no, that's not true. All right. It's not going to be true for you. Because it really is like a hall of mirrors. What I think, what I believe, life tends to validate that one way or the other. And so when I start believing that the obstacle is the way, that whatever is coming up in front of me, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, that's actually designed for my accelerated growth, for my self-actualization and my self-realization. If I start thinking like that, something very profound happens. One of my favorite quotes from Rumi, he says, "How will your mirror ever be polished? How will your mirror ever be polished if you complain with every rub?" So at some point, we must have asked to be shiny. So I want to shine. I want to be the best version of myself. I want to truly use my strengths and talents and gifts for the maximum benefit of all, to be my best version. We must have said that at some point. And life said, all right, let's do this. So it raised up the temperature. Let's get all the muck out. Let's squeeze out from you all that's not serving you. And so then now we're facing the music sometimes. Right? So this is good medicine. If it shouldn't have happened, it wouldn't have happened. How will my mirror be polished if I complain with every rub? How will I deal with the big challenges in life when I'm already struggling with the small ones? The cashier line, the checkout line is going too slow and I'm losing my cool. Or someone says something about me that I don't like, I'm losing my cool. I mean, these are minuscule things compared to the big challenges of old age and sickness and death. So let's use these small little challenges as stepping stones for our practice. Practice of what? Whatever quality you want to develop in yourself. Maybe it's infinite patience. One of my favorite quotes is, "Infinite patience is the fastest way." There's a nice cartoon I saw of this person who writes a note to God. "Dear God, please grant me patience. And please be quick." Please make it quick. So that's what happens. We want something and we want it right away. We want it yesterday. Another quality could be the quality of cheerfulness, the quality of joyfulness. In fact, one really good exercise I can recommend for you is to ask yourself, you start again Contra Wisdom, right? You start with the opposite. You start with, what would make your life unsuccessful? How would you know your life is unsuccessful? To come with 5 things that would make your life supremely unsuccessful. One way to do this is you interview yourself as you're dying. So like, my name is Nithya Shanti. I'll interview the dying version of Nithya Shanti. This particular Nithya Shanti has had a horrific life. Completely unfulfilled, completely unsuccessful, completely unhappy, suffering in every possible way. And I interview this Nithya Shanti, like, wow, you have great wisdom. You have managed to live the most unfulfilling possible life. So please tell me, how did you achieve this? What did you do to make your life so spectacularly unsuccessful? And then the Mr. Dying Nithya Shanti will give me 5 or maybe more. 5 is good. Five ways in which he completely messed up his life. So for example, maybe he couldn't be trusted. Maybe he did not live up to his own values. Maybe he was deceptive and manipulative. You name it, right? So whatever, maybe he didn't follow his intuition. Maybe he didn't develop the skills that he really wanted to, and he just did things to please other people. So 5 things like this that would make life unsuccessful. And then similarly, interview a dying version of yourself who's had a very successful life, very fulfilling life, very meaningful life, very joyful life. And say, wow, Nithya Shanti, you managed to have the most spectacular, amazing, beautiful life. And how come your life is so amazing? And then this dying version of Nithya Shanti gives 5 powerful reasons why this life has been so amazing, so powerful. And they could be the opposite of the previous 5, or they could be slightly different. And you combine now both of this. You combine the wisdom from the version of you that was completely unfulfilled, and the version of you that was deeply fulfilled, deeply satisfied, deeply contented, right? Fulfilled, dying with a smile. You combine this to come up with 5 ways in which you too can have a joyful, meaningful, prosperous, abundant, grateful, in every possible way, a full spectrum life, I would say. Now, this becomes a kind of compass for you. These are the qualities you want to develop. How will your mirror be polished if you complain with every rub? So now when the rubs are coming, you ask yourself, what are the things you want to achieve in your life? So there are 2 aspects to this. One of the things you want to actually do, that's the outer aspect. And the deeper aspect is the qualities you need to develop in yourself, inculcate in yourself, strengthen in yourself to achieve those things. So I'll just give you what came to me, and I would love you to do the exercise on your own. There's also a book on this topic. It's called The Five Wishes. Who's the author? I can't remember the author right now. But look up The Five Wishes, and it talks about something quite similar to what I'm describing. And so in my case, the five are, the first one, these are the five wishes, things I want to achieve, experience, actualize in my life. Number one is to be embodied, you could say empowered and awakened. Awake and empowered. It's another way of saying self-actualized and self-realized. This is my number one most important thing for this lifetime. I want to be self-actualized and self-realized to the maximum possible capacity that I can. The next one is to have deep, meaningful, authentic human relations, connections. The people in my life, I want to connect with them in a very deep way, a meaningful way, a wholehearted way. And of course, there are barriers within myself, which I have to overcome for that. There are skills I have to learn for that. And there has to be an intention to have that. The third one is to put together a body of teachings. It could be principles, it could be practices, it could be pointers, it could be games, it could be anything. A body of teachings that supports people in living a more conscious, joyful, meaningful, happy life. That's the third one for me, putting together a body of such teachings. The fourth one is conscious community. Because it's no fun doing this stuff on your own. So a community of people who are on a similar wavelength. I like to say your vibe attracts your tribe. So a community of people who are learning from each other, growing together. That's the fourth one. And the fifth one is spaces and places where this deeper connection of self to self, self with other, and self with life. Places and spaces designed just for this, strengthening our sense of being. So those are my five wishes. Maybe you can help me achieve my five wishes. And five qualities that will help me achieve those five wishes. The five qualities are: one, being more present. Being more present. Awareness is the first quality. The second quality has got to do with the heart. And the heart, by heart I mean qualities like love and compassion. Love and compassion. Also things like appreciative joy, but basically love and compassion. Awareness, love and compassion, gratitude. This has been a big one in my life. The gratitude was a big game changer for me. When I, instead of looking always at what's missing in me, missing in my life, I began focusing on what's there. I began liking what's there, appreciating what's there, falling in love with the way things are instead of how I hope they should be, could be, would be. So gratitude has been a huge, big, important quality for me. Third one, gratitude. And the fourth quality in my case is joyful service. Can I serve for the joy of serving? Whether or not you like it or not, whether or not you understand what I'm saying or not, of course, one can learn and do better. But just for the joy of serving, not to get accolades, not to necessarily be appreciated or recognized. If I have to be recognized, I will be. If not, that's all right. It doesn't have to be recognized. So doing things for the joy of doing things. There's a lovely word in Greek language, miraki. Miraki is whatever you do, pour yourself into it. Pour yourself with what? Pour yourself with all your energy, all your love, all your innovation, all your creativity. In such a way that a part of you is left in that forever. Whatever you do it in this wholehearted way. That's miraki. And that's what I mean by joyful service. And the last one is conscious living and conscious leaving. So the essence of that is letting go, the ability to let go, the ability to move on. Right. If I double click on that, it's the ability to laugh, the ability to learn, the ability to let go, and the ability to love. So these are my five orienting qualities, and these are the five things that I, in my case, want to achieve in my life. And now when I see whatever happens in my life, if I decide it's all good medicine, it's a highly advanced curriculum, precisely designed, everything that happened in my day, everything that happened in my life is an opportunity for me to grow in these 5 qualities and to grow towards creating what I have decided meaningful for me in this lifetime. Would you like to take a couple of minutes? I mean, it may take longer, but just for today's call, just take a couple of minutes, reflect on this, see if you can come up with your 5 wishes. Even if it's a temporary list, you can always improve it further later on. Take 2 minutes. And do you have 5 wishes? And do you have 5 inner qualities that will help you in accomplishing those 5 wishes? Let's take 2 minutes. In case any of you want to share some of this in the chat, go ahead. Take another half minute. Very nice. So the last thing I like to say, I'll be looking at your chat in a moment. The last thing I like to say is that it's not an accident. See, our mind keeps telling us that this is wrong, I shouldn't be like this, life shouldn't be like this. But as we know, our mind is what gets us in trouble most of the time anyway. I love this full form of mind, MIND. Mostly inaccurate neurodrama. So never mind. Don't believe everything your mind says. Right? And suppose you were to see this as a very advanced curriculum. This is exactly what we need for our fast growth, fast evolution. If you just receive it as a genuine blessing, even if your mind scoffs at that idea, this actually is a blessing. And so I like to use the phrase, I'm not fooled. I'm not fooled. This is the most perfect moment of my life. I'm not fooled. I'm not fooled. This is the best thing that could have happened. You know, it's, what is that quote I read recently? That when it happens, it probably happens to all of us sooner or later, that people don't understand us. Family members, friends, colleagues, they don't understand. We're trying to explain ourselves again and again. They just don't understand us. And the beginning is really, frustrating. They don't, not only do they not understand, they don't even want to understand us. Very frustrating. But then it occurs to you that, wow, maybe they don't need to understand me. What is this fixation of wanting people to understand you? As though they understand you anyway. Who in your life really understands you? Come on. Right? I love this quote I read recently that there are only 2 kinds of, what is it? That there's no such thing as communication. There's always miscommunication. But the 2 kinds of miscommunication: successful miscommunication and unsuccessful miscommunication. because we really don't. How can anyone know exactly what I'm thinking and feeling? You can only approximate it, right? I mean, language comes close, but language is never precise. So we have some, Manisha says, letting go, equanimity, gratitude, acceptance, and going with the flow, right? Harshit says, liberation, being part of conscious communities, helping others reach the best potential, and in the process, do so for oneself. Being a master of what I love, make this world a joyful place. Beautiful. Ankita says to remove fear from all beings. Brilliant. This is all great. So, whatever you're experiencing, I want to summarize what I'm sharing today as this. No mistakes. Whatever you're experiencing is not a mistake. It's an opportunity. Opportunity for what? For you to grow in these 5 qualities, or more or less qualities. Could be even 1 quality, doesn't matter. It's an opportunity for you to practice that at the highest possible level. These days, I'm training in something called bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is you use every experience as jet fuel. Every experience is jet fuel. For what? For wisdom and compassion. And how is it jet fuel for that? Any experience, even if it's laziness, even if it's distraction, even if it's self-judgment, any experience, there are countless other beings experiencing laziness. There are countless other beings experiencing procrastination. There are countless other beings who are judging themselves. There are countless other beings who feel that they're not using their life, living their life well. All right, so I tune into that specific frequency. Countless other beings are experiencing this. I'm not the only one. All right, so let's give meaning to this then. May I be the only one who has this. Since I have it anyway, may I be the only one who has this. May all of them be instantly free from it. You gave a powerful meaning to your experience. This is the compassionate intent. May you not have to suffer. I'm suffering anyway? All right, so then I'll take it. What you just did was you stopped resisting, you gave it a meaning, you welcomed it. See, an experience that is meaningless leads to suffering. An experience that is meaningful, even if it's uncomfortable, doesn't lead to suffering. It is the meaninglessness of it. That's what creates suffering. You go for a massage, sometimes it's painful. Go for yoga, sometimes it's painful. You go for a run, sometimes it's painful. Sometimes you're creating something new, it's painful. You're learning something new, it's painful. But you have a meaning, oh, this is good for me, this is good for me. Oh, everything's good for me. Then if I decide, what if I decide everything is good for me? Then what happens? So the image of a sun comes, right? The sun is shining its light equally. The sun is shining its light on you. And whatever you are presently experiencing, that becomes a portal for the sunlight, which represents awareness. For me, sunlight represents awareness, light, and love, warmth. Sunlight is light, luminosity, and warmth. Awareness and love. The sunlight that's falling on you has a chance to now, just like a prism, a prism breaks up light into a rainbow. So the sunlight has an opportunity, whatever you're presently experiencing, with awareness and love, there's an opportunity for this. All beings can benefit from your experience if you think like that. Obstacle is the way. No mud, no lotus. Is it not true that everyone you admire, deeply, genuinely respect and admire, has been through a lot of shit in their life, difficulties in their life, challenges, obstacles in their life, and then they have converted that into the magic? From that pressure, graphite under tremendous pressure becomes diamond. Gold under tremendous heat becomes purified. From the mud emerges the lotus. Use the negative to develop. Life is like photography. Use the negative to develop. If that's the case, then the way for you to love yourself, respect yourself, admire yourself, be at peace with yourself, is to be like those people you admire. It is not a mistake what you're going through. This is part of your legend. There will be a legend told 2000 years from today about your life and how you overcame your present challenges. If you choose to see it like that, if you choose to see it as this is my legend in the making, and it'll be like that. And of course, if you resist it like everybody else does, then we just have to go through that. That's just strife and suffering. So this is what I wanted to share today. And I have an 8-part course, which is very beautifully put together by the team at Round Glass. We shot this in the Himalayas. And we had a nice big team, and we went there, and on location we shot this. And I've shared 8 different ways. There are so many ways in which Contra Wisdom is applies to our life. I've shared 8 ways that I find particularly meaningful. And the best part is this course is entirely priceless, available for all. So I invite each of you to look up this course, shift your perception, the unexpected wisdom in contradiction. It's actually launching today. And the website is round.glass/Shanti. Sorry, Nithya, not Shanti. Round, round.glass/NITHYA. And that's round.glass/Nithya. It's also on the app. You can download the Round Glass app. Let me give you a little preview of this course. And with that, we will conclude today's session. Watch a small preview. Thanks so much. Enjoyed being here with all of you. Lots of love from India. This is Nithya. The opposite of what I believe is also true in some way. Very powerful question. Sometimes we get into a rut because of what we've been told. For example, we've been told success comes through hard work. And we've heard it so often. And we forget that actually success also comes from hard work. Can we define success on our own terms and not just what society expects? So we don't remember what people say, we remember how they make us feel. We don't care what people know until we know that they care. So the real shift in any case is a shift in the heart. That's where the transformation happens. When the voice and the vision on the inside gets louder than the voices and opinions on the outside, that's when you mastered your life. So in this course, I'd like you to get into a way of thinking about life where you regularly challenge what you believe to be true. While it's wonderful and supportive to have values, it's also tremendously freeing to, from time to time, drop the values. But any value is going to narrow your scope of how you experience yourself and your world. And it's nice to take a holiday from that once in a while. So I've put together some of my favorite Contra Wisdom in this course. And for me, there have been significant shifts, each and every one of them. And I'm sure you'll find something here that challenges your way of looking at the world and gives you a new perspective on life. There's a lovely quote by Mary Oliver, the wonderful poet, and she says, "Wouldn't God be disappointed if you're not dazzled by this existence at least 10 times a day?" It's an invitation to step out of the history and into the mystery. And that's what Contra Wisdom promises to do. Join me on Round Glass, where we go against the grain of what we think we know.